welcome to tonight's episode of Beyond Focus TV. I'm Lydia Patel, and as always, I have a very special guest for you, Miss Lorrie Ayers-Hutchinson, president of the Brooklyn Club. She'll be with us for the next 30 minutes, so stay with us. You're watching Beyond Focus TV.
Beyond Focus TV allows you to discuss contemporary topics affecting the Caribbean people on both a national and local level. The show features informed guests who offer insight, debate, and evaluate various issues. Beyond Focus TV builds on the station's mission to provide useful information to the Caribbean people in New York and abroad. Beyond Focus TV, where our viewing audience can get educated, informed, and empowered.
Welcome back. You're watching Beyond Focus TV. I'm Lydia Patel. Like I said, I have a very special guest for you. Lorrie Ayers-Hutchinson, president of the Brooklyn Club, is in the house. Welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
Well, it's great to have you here. We love supporting women who are doing great things. You know, we're just coming off the heels of Women's Month. And, it's great to have women in the community actively doing great things. And so when we find one, we highlight her, bring her here on Beyond Focus. That includes you. So before we even get straight into it, let's rewind a little bit and talk about who Lorrie Ayers-Hutchinson is. Who are you?
Okay, so you mentioned I'm the president of the Brooklyn Club of the National Association of Negro Business and Professional Women's Clubs, Incorporated. And this is an organization that has been around for a very long time, founded in 1935 for the National Association. And the Brooklyn Club was founded in 1945, just 10 years later. And so I'm standing in the line of a long legacy of women who really stood for having a community that worked, not just for themselves, but for the generation coming behind them.
And that's great because, like we're saying off camera, it's kind of like the best kept secret because, and I'm just trying to think, even 1945, women were still, not very much in business at that point. So to actually create their own sector and have that, create that chapter, I think is amazing because you could just imagine you're talking 70 plus years ago where women were still at home baking cookies doing the family role, which is fine, it's great, but we have come a long way since then.
Absolutely. I kind of tell people we affectionately refer to NANBPWC as BMP, or the Business of Professional Women. And I said, BMP, that could stand for more than business and professional. I think that those women were bold and powerful. For you to proclaim yourselves such an association at a time with not just women, but particularly women of color, were not treated with a great deal of respect. And for them to say, as business and professional women, that they were going to make a way for other women to be able to be empowered and take those roles.
So give us a little bit of history, because I love history. I love kind of hearing the story of how things got started. So let's fast forward to 1945. The original chapter started in 1935. 1945, they decided to make the Brooklyn chapter. Who were the founding members, or how many founding members did they have?
There were 21 women who were called together by the national president. But I don't want you to think that just because the Brooklyn Club started then, that women from Brooklyn were not already a part of this association. In fact, a very prominent member of the organization, Miss Ruth Handy, was a past national president of the organization. She lived on Quincy Street in Bedford-Stuyvesant. And so people don't always realize that when people look at different time frames, they may say the New York Club, but that meant women from all of New York City. But eventually, Brooklyn Club was established. 21 women started that chapter, teachers, business owners, beauticians, morticians. These women were really just in the community and said, how can I make a difference?
That is awesome. And tell us a little bit about life before becoming the Brooklyn president. I know it's probably like, wait, there's life before that.
Actually, there's a lot of life before then. Well, let's see. I'm the mother of a 31-year-old son. And a lot...
Rewind. Put a pause on that. I have to say you look absolutely amazing.
Thank you.
For you to say that puts the number I had in my head originally.
Just a little
off.
A little higher.
A little higher.
Just a little bit. But I was a young mother, and this is one of the reasons why I'm so involved in the community. As a mother, I got very engaged in my son's school. I wanted to learn what could I do to be a better mother, how could I support his learning, how could I help him develop to the best of his ability. And so I would go to the school and I would go to workshops and I'd be at the library reading and learning whatever I could do to help him. And sometimes that meant I'd had to help the whole school. I got on a committee. I think the first committee, the first job was to read to the children in pre-K. And you just signed up for a chance to read. And of course, I couldn't just read. I'm a former New York City school storytelling champion.
Yes.
So you had to read and be a little theatrical. And the kids, of course,
Animated.
want you to come and read again because you read really well. And so I became a class parent. I'd go on trips. I went to all of the workshops. And many of those workshops, years later, I ended up turnkeying to other parents.
Wow.
So I learned a lot of my leadership skills just by learning how to be a better parent. And I always credit my son with me being who I am. I would never have chosen to do a lot of the things I did, Cub Scouts and Little League and all. I wouldn't have done those things if it weren't for him. It was really all about how do I make him better. And in the course of doing that, I made myself a better person.
Looking back now that he's an adult and all that stuff, do you guys ever have conversations about, because you guys essentially kind of grew up together doing that and you're learning along the way and having you there, did he ever share any highlights or his sentiment of having you so involved in his school?
Well, I always tell people I have a lot of awards, but my first award and my favorite award as an adult was the Mother of the Year award because he wrote an essay in second grade about why his mom was a great mom. And for a long time, even though I had other awards, that was the only one that was up on the wall because that was the most meaningful one. Since then, a lot of other awards have joined, but I said, this is the start. You literally showed me how important what I did for you mattered. And other people saw that too. And I said, it wasn't just impacting you, it was impacting all the children around you.
Absolutely. And I read an interesting article the other day, I think it was on Facebook or something, where they said being a mother, not even just a full-time mother, well, technically you're always a full-time mother, but a mother where you have to still work a regular job and then come home and be a mother, is just the mothering portion is the equivalent of 2.5 jobs on its own.
Yeah, it really is. And actually for that reason, I did not work out of the home for much of his childhood. I worked for myself. So I would create freelance opportunities for myself. I would do a lot of crafts and sell the items, whatever I could do to spend the most time being able to be a mother, because it takes a lot to work full time, be a full time mother. And let's face it, sometimes you need a little bubble bath for yourself. So you kind of have to find space for all of that. And what I did was sort of say, how can I spend less hours working outside of the home? And so I maximized the time he's with his grandparents. I would do freelance gigs on the weekends when he's with grandma. And I would make enough to live and not have to be away from home all day.
That's good. And of course, not everyone has that luxury, and you see more and more, it becomes more difficult to even be able to do the whole stay home or even take time off. I mean, when you see some places, it's 8 weeks maternity leave. I mean, that's crazy to think 2 months is not even the minimum that daycare takes a baby is 3.
That's right. That's right. My own sister-in-law recently had an adorable baby boy, and what I really loved is she looked at the cost of childcare and said, this is ridiculous, and why would I take all of these hours away from my children? Why don't I just open a home daycare? And so she gets to be home with him and help other moms out and then not cost quite so much for them. Exactly. I thought that was the perfect solution.
There you go. Everyone's trying to help out. Well, we'll take a quick break. We'll be right back. You're watching Beyond Focus TV. Stay with us. Welcome back. You're watching Beyond Focus TV. I'm Lydia Patel. So, Lorrie, you spent many years in the education system. Kind of highlight, in your opinion, how things have changed, where they are now, And I know for myself, one of the common things just the other day with the recent storms that came, we're like, where was this like 20 years ago, all these school closings? And, like, New York got soft. We got soft. We closed for the drop of a hat. And looking back and be like, you'd be trucking your way to school through the snow, through everything else without a snow day. Now, I mean, in hindsight, it is safer. Mm-hmm. But certain things have changed.
So I'm going to say a couple of things have changed. And I remember being a kid and the snow would have to be up to my head before I didn't go to school. But I think that one of the main things that you have to consider is where teachers live. So even when the snowstorm was over and we came back the next day, in some schools there were very few staff members because the teachers still couldn't get to school if they lived outside of the city. And you have to consider that the affordability of living in the city, teachers don't live in the neighborhoods where they teach anymore. They're not a neighborhood person, and, well, not frequently. And as a result, you will have a lot of teachers who can't make it if they're in New Jersey or Long Island or upstate, where the snow may have been much worse, or the commuter rails weren't up and running. There wasn't a way for them to get there, and so schools had a very interesting day to plan learning activities for large groups of children. And I'm going to be really straight. Parents need childcare so that they can go to work. So there's a lot of pressure for the schools to be open. We also have children who need to eat. And there's no food at home because their parents are counting on them eating at school. So we need to do everything we can to be open, and we try our best. But we also have to make choices. I mean, the mayor has to look at it and say, how do we keep our city safe?
Absolutely.
And our children are our most vulnerable citizens. I worked in a school for over 10 years, and I lived about 8 blocks from school. So on the emergency plan, I was like the number 2 person.
Yes.
Because I would be walking in the snow no matter how high it got. I would get to work and be there with the kids. I definitely don't walk to work anymore. And I could see how it could be really difficult for people to make it if their trains weren't running.
Absolutely. I mean, it gets difficult. But you brought up an excellent point about the meals, about the childcare. I mean, even at work, you know, when they sent out the text that that schools were closed, and immediately people were like, oh my God, what am I going to do now? You got to source an alternative. And if we can't come to work, then the good thing is most people had to stay home. But if you don't have another way, it could be quite difficult.
I can imagine that parenting today is difficult. In fact, the National Association, our Northeast District, which Brooklyn Club is a part of, is having a conference coming up in June. We're having a networking event on the Friday night, and we have a panel discussion. And that panel discussion is called Having It All. So there's a lot of conversations around business and professional women who are, they're rising and grinding. They've got things to do, people to see, places to go. How do they make all the parts of their life work? Some of them are not married. They're dating. How do you date and you've got work to do and you've got clients to meet or you've got jobs that you've got to complete? And how do you find people that are in that same vein with you? You may not find someone who's got that drive and that ambition that you have. So we want to try and figure out how do we help women use the tools that we have available. And we have so many tools available to us now. I literally just left a workshop talking about how we can use these technology tools we often have in our hands to really maximize and make our time more effective. And if we're managing that time more effectively, then you make more room to go out on fun dates and to
have your personal
spend time
life
with your family or take that time with your children. But we've got to figure out how do we all fit it in. And to be perfectly honest, we've got to help each other get there. You're not going to get there by yourself.
Absolutely. And as part of the Brooklyn Club, I mean, I think that's one of the core missions that you guys have is really setting that forward.
I'm really a fan of our current program thrust, which is leadership, entrepreneurship, technology, and service. And you'll notice that service is last. Women take care of everyone else. They take care of their families. They take care of their parents. They take care of the community. But the reality is, if we don't build leadership within our community, who's going to guide us? Who's going to